over the news.
Kellyanne Conway, who's counselor to President Trump, joins us live from the White House this morning. Good morning to you, Kellyanne.
Good morning.
The president clearly defending his son-in-law. Set the record straight for us. What are the facts?
Well, the facts are that Jared Kushner has said from the very beginning he's willing to go and share any information that he has with Congress, with the FBI. And as you heard General McMaster, as you heard Secretary Kelly over this weekend say, they're not concerned. Back channels like this are the regular course of business. And that's really all that we know. And I think it's very important to recognize that the president has expressed full confidence in Jared Kushner, and also went on to note the considerable progress and very large, important portfolio that Jared oversees here at the White House. At the end of this month, he'll be hosting another major meeting with tech, the heads of tech companies, for example, to really try to figure out how we can improve efficiencies and cost savings in the government. Obviously, the relationships that Jared was able to establish during transition helped develop this phenomenal international trip that they just came back from. And I think one of the great measures that we have as to how successful this trip for the president really was is how little talk it's getting still by the mainstream media. That's usually a measurement that I put forth. And it's true. And Jared also is responsible for following up on different elements of that trip. But he's always said that he'll be fully cooperative with any information that he has.
So do you back up the Fox News report that said that it was the Russians that reached out to Jared Kushner, and it was not the other way around, so the Reuters report being wrong? And what about today's New York Times report that say Kushner reached out to a banker named Gorkov, who's on a U.S. blacklist?
I'm not going to comment on any of that because there's no reason to, frankly. We know that there have been many news reports very recently that had the facts wrong. If you go back to a couple of weeks ago, you'll notice that one paper in particular, 3 times in a row, relied upon information that was immediately batted down as false. And this entire thing is just a rush to judgment. We've been talking about this for about 8 months.
I know.
And yet you have Senator Feinstein saying she has not changed her position, that there's evidence of collusion. You have Senator Graham saying as much. You have former CIA director Mr. Brennan in testimony last week refusing to make that leap, that conclusion. And so I know people want to confuse them. I know, look, it's a lot easier to scream Russia, Russia, Russia all day, and even have Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden out there talking about the election.
Yeah. I just think that the pushback specifically would be to the White House advantage, and it seems like you did it through our Catherine Herridge yesterday. Meanwhile, there's some other stories.
Yeah, there is. Kellyanne, there's reports in the media as well, always, about shakeups in the White House. This morning, some pretty specific ones coming out, potentially that White House Communications Director Mike Dubke could be on the way out. Can you give us any information that's verifiable about things that might be changing at the White House?
Well, I went back and looked at some of my notes. The very first time I was ever asked about somebody being pushed out of the White House was January 23rd. We had been here for 3 whole days. And so there's been a story a minute about that. It's easier to cover that than, I guess, learning the finer points of healthcare reform and tax reform and infrastructure and ISIS in retreat. Having said that, the president has always surrounded himself with people who are able to work together and in a collaborative fashion, are able to deal with the news of the day, but also think more long-term and strategically. I did not know Mike Dubke before he came on as communications director. Did not know him well. I know he's worked very hard here. But people in administrations tend to leave on their own volition as well. They tend to find that working 18-hour days in different environments are maybe not what's best suited for them. In terms of, quote, staff shakeups, I always read things that simply aren't true. I work here every day. It's much more collaborative than people realize. I think that we're constantly being told by people who have never worked in any White House, let alone this White House, exactly what's going on here.
All right, we have on the bottom of the screen that Mike Dubke is out as the White House Communications Director. Can you confirm that, yes or no?
So what I will say is that he has expressed his desire to leave the White House, and made very clear that he would see through the president's international trip and come to work every day and work hard even through that trip, because there was much to do here back at the White House. I also would note, because many people again misreported this, that Sean Spicer is expected back at the podium today for an on-the-record briefing at 2 p.m.
Will there be less briefings?
Well, there will always be White House briefings, but as you've seen, that we've had cabinet secretaries and other administration officials going up to the podium and being part of the briefings when the issue sets that they're working on are actually part of the news of the day.
Gotcha.
And that's gone very effectively as well. Not every briefing has to be on camera either. It doesn't. There are many audio briefings that many press secretaries in the past have given.
Thank you so much. You know television. We're up against a hard break. Thanks so much.
Kellyanne.
Thank you.